Chris Butler, CEO of National Tree Company, welcome to State of Freight.
Thanks for having me, Lorianne. I appreciate it.
In the early summer, I actually interviewed a logistics executive who told me that for the first time ever, they saw a reduction in terms of the number of artificial Christmas trees coming into the U.S. this year for the holidays. So we pulled imports for your company for this year, and they are much lower. Can you tell us in terms of a percentage of how much less you are bringing in this year as a result of the tariffs?
Sure. So just a generalization here. So the artificial Christmas tree business, or the artificial Christmas business, about 90% of that is sourced historically from China. And so what we saw this year with the tariffs and Liberation Day was a massive pullback from production in China for those goods. So, we saw a lot of companies pushing their production to other countries or just pulling back on their manufacturing this year. National Tree, we decided to pull back and diversify into other countries a year or so ago. And so while our Chinese shipments are way down than what they've been in the past, we'll make about 55% of our trees and our goods outside of China this year. So overall, our shipments will be down about 25% this year. But in general, we've definitely diversified out of China, but I think it's probably going to be a lot worse for other companies.
We pulled the sourcing data with Panjiva, and we saw, like you noted, China is pretty much the lead in terms of the sourcing. And then when you pull it out, you've got Hong Kong, Cambodia, Vietnam, and Indonesia. But unfortunately, the tariffs are everywhere now. This is something that, of course, no one really, saw. Walk me through in terms of the mitigation measures and, like you in the war room, as it relates to now tariffs are literally touching your entire supply chain.
Yeah, so look, I think any good business needs to have a diverse supply chain regardless of tariffs. Tariffs this year were an extra wrinkle for sure in our industry. But again, as a good company, you need to be diversified, whether it be China, Asia, Mexico, Turkey, the US in some instances. So, from our perspective, we got ahead of it. Wasn't really to do with tariffs. It was more to do with just good business practices, and we'll continue to do that regardless of tariffs. We don't know where tariffs are going. We don't know if they're going to stay where they are today. They may come down, they may go up, but we're going to make sure that we have a flexible and diverse supply chain going forwards.
With the decrease in the amount of imports that you brought in this year, what is your message to consumers? Are they going to be facing a shorter supply in terms of Christmas decor this holiday season?
Yeah, so I think there'll be definitely shorter supply of Christmas goods this year, for sure, as you noted. I think prices will be slightly up, and I think that we're definitely going to see a short supply year. So, if you're a consumer and you are in the market for Christmas goods this year, I would definitely act now and get ahead of the curve. The peak for this industry is the Black Friday weekend. That's when sales are at the absolute highest. I would not wait for that weekend. I would get ahead of that. And so buy now, buy early is what I would say to consumers.
What about promotions? We've heard from a lot of retailers out there that because of the less inventory, they're not going to be putting as much items on sale, which makes sense. What are you doing in terms of pricing and in terms of promotions?
Yeah, so we had to raise prices by about 10%. So some items it was a little bit more, some items it was a little bit less, but on average about 10%. We've seen the industry, just through public information, in general have raised prices as well. We're definitely going to promote our goods at the right times. So whether it be Amazon's Prime Big Deal Day, or whether it be during the Black Friday holidays, or even leading into Black Friday, we'll be promoting our goods, probably not as heavily as in years past, but definitely we'll be promoting our goods to make sure that consumers can buy their Christmas goods, can get their trees, can get their wreaths, their ornaments, and have a great celebration with their families this year.
In terms of replenishment, traditionally your company brings additional containers in October, just so you can make sure that the customer has their tree, wreath, whatever it may be, for the holidays. What are you doing this year in terms of replenishment, and how much are you bringing in comparison to last year?
Yes, as I noted before, probably about 25% less we'll be bringing in net from our factory partners. And so, we typically start deliveries in May, June, and then all the way through October. Because there was a slowdown as everybody shifted out of China this year to try and find new capacity, that definitely slowed down supply chains overall. And so we are definitely going to be bringing in some products up into mid-November, which is very, very late for us. But again, the peak of the business is around the Thanksgiving weekend, so we'll be in plenty of time to sell those goods, but definitely a little bit later than normal for sure.
In addition to being CEO of the National Tree Company, you lead the Christmas Trade Group. What is your message to the administration?
So we've been working with the administration as a Christmas Trade Group, and the Christmas Trade Group is a group of companies that are in the Christmas business, cover about $1 billion in revenue and about 1,000 plus employees in the United States. And we've been working with the administration. We've had good, productive conversations, educational conversations, helping them understand where we make our products, how we make our products, the percentage of consumers that buy our products. 85% of Americans celebrate Christmas with a tree. 75% of those consumers celebrate with an artificial tree. So it's a huge industry. As I noted before, 90+% of the industry was based in China. And so, really the message to the administration, and we've had great conversations with Treasury, with Trade, with the faith-based office, is to help them understand the size and scale of the industry, and then to really talk about solutions. And what we're really after is exemptions or exclusions from the tariff so that we can continue to deliver low-cost, quality goods to the American consumer who obviously love Christmas.
What has been the response by the administration in your request for exemptions?
So at this point, we're still in education mode. Again, we've met with Treasury, we've met with Trade, we've met with the faith-based officers, and so really helping them understand that. So, our message now is becoming one of exemptions and exclusions, and so that is kind of the path that we're on right now.
In terms of making the trees here in America or offshoring, how much more would it be compared to where you're manufacturing now?
Yeah, we've looked at that, and with raw materials, we'd still have to import raw materials. Obviously, labor is more expensive in the U.S., and so we've done the math, and a tree made in the U.S. would probably be about 2.5 to 3 times more expensive. So we're continuing to look at automation. We're continuing to look at other things that we can do, whether it be nearshoring and other ways to mitigate. But at this point, it would be very expensive, and the economics just probably wouldn't work from a consumer perspective.
With the tariffs set at the current rate, do you feel the affordability and availability of Christmas decor is at risk for this year and for next?
I think that the tariffs have definitely had an impact on the affordability. As I've said, we've raised our prices about 10%, so not a huge amount. So I think some consumers will be able to weather that. I think consumers at the lower end of the economic spectrum may struggle, especially as discretionary items and discretionary item spending is falling off a little bit. So definitely this year may have an impact. In terms of 2026 and beyond, again, that's why we'd love to have further conversations with the administration so that potentially we can save Christmas going forwards and give American consumers the low prices that we think they deserve.
How has the company been able to absorb the costs?
So we've looked at the entire supply chain and the entire value chain. So, with our suppliers, we've asked them to absorb some of this. We've absorbed some of this a little bit in terms of our margin. And also, again, like as I've mentioned, we've passed on some cost increases as well. So really trying to split up the impact of the tariff throughout the value chain.
How sustainable are these tariffs over the long term? And is there a chance at some point that the company might have to consider layoffs or even freeze wages? So in terms of the tariffs being sustainable, look, this is the new normal as of today. We may be looking at changes in the future. We don't know at this point. Again, we're ready to talk to the administration about these exemptions. I think there's a great case to be made around Christmas goods. In terms of laying off people, again, from a company standpoint, we operate very effectively and efficiently, and so we're definitely not looking at layoffs at this point. Again, as a seasonal business, you have to be very mindful of the labor that you have and the employees that you have.
all of our employees work very, very hard, and we're using automation on a day-to-day basis. So at this point, I don't foresee layoffs happening because of this.
Chris Butler, CEO of National Tree Company, thank you for joining us.